The massive hologram flickered above every major city on Earth, its purple-tinted image casting an eerie glow across the frightened faces of billions. The alien figure stood tall, its formal robes rippling in some unseen wind. When it spoke, its voice boomed across the planet in perfect English. People of Earth, the Galactic Council has observed your civilization's progress. You have reached a sufficient level of advancement to join our grand coalition. As is tradition, we require an annual tribute of 10,000 humans for cultural exchange and labor programs. This is non-negotiable. In the United Defense Council's underground bunker beneath Geneva, 50 of Earth's top military and political leaders sat in stunned silence. The room's air felt thick with tension as they rewatched the transmission for the third time. Admiral Gray stood up first, his weathered face tight with anger. They're not even trying to hide their contempt. 10,000 people, every year. He slammed his fist on the metal table. Like we're cattle. Captain James Walker studied the alien's body language on the screen. After 15 years in military intelligence, he had learned to read between the lines. They're lying, he said, drawing everyone's attention. This isn't about cultural exchange. Look at how they stand. Rigid, dominant. This is a power play. The room erupted in heated discussion. Some argued for immediate military response, others for diplomatic solutions. The debate raged until Commander Reeb burst through the doors, clutching a tablet. "Sir," she rushed to Admiral Gray, her face pale. "We've decoded more of their transmissions. Earth isn't the first. There were others who received the same demand." The room fell silent as she connected her tablet to the main screen. Images flashed before them. Worlds that had once housed thriving civilizations. Now they were nothing but barren wastelands, their surfaces scourged by orbital bombardment. Those who refused, Reed's voice trembled slightly. They were made examples of. Walker stepped closer to the screen, studying the devastation. And those who accepted. Reed's expression darkened. "We're still piecing it together, but we found references to something called the Games. Whatever happens to the tribute species, it's not cultural exchange." Admiral Gray turned to the assembled leaders. "We have 30 days to respond. They're watching us right now, monitoring every transmission, every movement. If we show any sign of resistance..." "Then we don't show resistance," Walker interrupted. "Not openly." All eyes turned to him as he continued. "We have one advantage. They think we're primitive, scared. They expect us to either submit or fight foolishly. But humanity has something they haven't counted on. We're very, very good at deception." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" "We pretend to comply. Publicly, we accept their demands. We even start preparing transport ships." Walker's lips curved into a grim smile. "But privately, we prepare for war. Not the kind they're expecting. Not battleships and armies. We give them their tribute, but we choose who goes." Understanding dawned on the Admiral's face. "Special forces." "Exactly." Walker pointed to the images of destroyed worlds. "They've done this before, which means they're overconfident. They won't expect a primitive species to think long-term. We send our best. Soldiers, hackers, specialists, disguised as ordinary civilians." Commander Reed nodded slowly. "A Trojan horse." "But we'll need time," one of the political leaders protested. "Time to prepare, to train." "Then we'll buy time," Walker replied. "We'll play the part of the scared, submissive species. Let them think they've won. Meanwhile, we prepare. We learn. We plan." Admiral Gray stood straight, his decision made. "I'll take this to the Security Council. Captain Walker, Commander Reed, I want a detailed plan on my desk in 48 hours. The rest of you, maintain absolute secrecy. As far as the world knows, we're still debating our response." As the leaders filed out, Walker stayed behind, staring at the frozen image of the alien ambassador. In its arrogant pose, he saw the seeds of its own destruction. They thought humans would be easy prey, another species to be harvested for their entertainment. They were about to learn a very painful lesson about humanity. Commander Reed crept through the dark halls of the abandoned alien outpost on Mars' far side. Earth's governments had kept this discovery secret for years, a small monitoring station left behind by the Council. Now it might hold the answers they desperately needed. Her helmet lights illuminated dust-covered consoles as she plugged in the decryption device. Walker's voice crackled in her earpiece. 15 minutes before their sensor satellite passes over. Make it count. The alien text scrolled across her visor as the translation software worked. Her eyes widened as she read. James, are you seeing this? Every word, he replied grimly. Download everything. The files told a horrifying story. The tributes weren't being used for cultural exchange or labor. They were being turned into entertainment. The Council operated massive arenas across their territory, where captured species fought for the amusement of the galaxy's elite. But it was worse than simple gladiatorial combat. The files showed genetic modification programs, behavior control experiments, and death rates that made Reed's stomach turn. Some tribute species had been completely wiped out, bred and fought to extinction for the Council's entertainment. Back on Earth, in the secure briefing room, Reed presented her findings to Admiral Gray and the Joint Chiefs. The room's atmosphere grew heavy with each new detail. They drugged them, Reed explained, showing brain scan images, enhanced their aggression, reduced their fear. Then they pit different species against each other. The winners get to survive until the next fight. The losers, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Walker stepped forward. But there's good news hidden in these files. The Council's arrogance is their weakness. Look at their security protocols. They're designed to control primitive slaves, not counter-trained military operators. He brought up a series of technical specifications. Their ships use standardized docking systems. Their computer networks follow basic patterns. They never expected any tribute species to understand their technology, let alone exploit it. Admiral Gray studied the data. What about their military capabilities? Strong, but not invincible, Walker replied. They rely heavily on intimidation. Most species surrender after the first show of force. They haven't fought a real war in centuries. Reed pulled up another file. There's something else. Not all tributes accept their fate. There have been attempts at resistance, rebellion. They failed because they were disorganized, desperate. But they proved the Council can be hurt. The Admiral nodded slowly. How many people know about this? Just the 4 of us in this room, Walker answered. And the special operations teams were screening. We're being careful, making it look like normal military rotations. Speaking of appearances, Reed added, the public preparation for the tribute is going as planned. The media believes we're cooperating. The Council's observers have reported back that Earth is complying fully. Good. The Admiral stood up. Because what I'm about to show you will change everything. He pressed a button, and a hidden door opened in the wall. Follow me. They descended into a vast underground chamber. Inside, rows of advanced weapons and armor stood ready. Unlike the bulky, obvious military gear, these looked like civilian clothes and everyday items, perfect for smuggling aboard Council ships. We've been preparing for something like this for years, Gray explained. Not aliens specifically, but the need to hide our true capabilities. Every major power has secret weapons programs. Now, we're combining them. Walker picked up what looked like a normal wristwatch. Is this what I think it is? Japanese quantum computing, disguised as simple electronics, can hack any system we've studied from the Mars outpost. The Admiral smiled grimly. We have more surprises ready. The Council thinks they're getting scared civilians. Instead, they're going to get the most dangerous fighters humanity has ever produced. Reed looked at the equipment, then back at the files showing the suffering of previous tributes. How long until we're ready? 3 weeks, Gray answered. That's all the time we have left to train our people and smuggle in the gear. When the Council comes to collect their tribute, They'll have no idea they're picking up their own destruction. The pieces were falling into place. Humanity would bare its teeth, but first, they had to perfect their sheep's clothing. The transport ships stood ready on the landing field, their white hulls gleaming in the morning sun. To the Council observers watching from orbit, they looked exactly like what they were supposed to be, civilian vessels, prepared to carry Earth's tribute. The alien inspectors had already checked them twice, finding nothing but passenger quarters and basic life support systems. They hadn't found the weapons hidden in the walls. They hadn't noticed the military-grade computing systems disguised as entertainment units, and they certainly hadn't recognized the scared civilians for what they really were. Walker stood before the assembled tribute, 2,000 of Earth's finest special operations personnel. In their simple clothes, they looked ordinary enough. The Council would see factory workers, teachers, office clerks, not the killers they really were. "Remember your cover stories," he said quietly. "You're afraid but resigned. You're doing this to protect your families. Most importantly, you're completely harmless." A grim smile crossed his face. "Let them think they've broken us." Commander Reed walked through the ranks, doing final checks on their hidden equipment. Each person wore what looked like a simple medical bracelet. In reality, advanced quantum computers. Their watches contained emergency beacons. Even their shoes held hidden tools. Council ships approaching. Admiral Gray's voice came through Walker's earpiece. 5 minutes until they land. Everyone in position. The gathered tribute moved toward the transport ships, shuffling like defeated people. Some carried small bags, others clutched photos of family members, all for show. Among them walked the elite hackers who would crack the Council's networks, demolitions experts who could disable ships, and soldiers trained in zero-gravity combat. The Council ships descended from the clouds, massive and dark. Their design screamed power and dominance, meant to intimidate. Walker watched as the alien representatives emerged, tall figures in ornate robes. Their movements showed their complete confidence, their absolute belief in their superiority. The lead alien stepped forward, its translator converting its speech to English. "We are pleased to see Earth's compliance. You have chosen wisely. These tributes will serve a greater purpose in the Galactic Council's grand design." Walker bowed his head, playing the part of the defeated human official. "We understand our place in the galaxy now. These volunteers will represent Earth well." Every word tasted like ash in his mouth, but he kept his voice humble. The loading began. Council guards directed humans into their ships, scanning them for weapons, checking their IDs. They were thorough, but they were scanning for obvious threats. They weren't prepared for weapons built into belt buckles or explosive compounds hidden in shoe soles. Reed approached one of the Council officials, her posture deliberately submissive. "Sir, we've prepared medical records for all tributes. Would you like to review them?" She held out a data pad, loaded with viruses that would begin infecting Council systems the moment they accessed it. The alien took the pad with barely a glance. Just as expected, they saw humans as primitive, harmless. Their arrogance would be their downfall. As the last group prepared to board, a young soldier stumbled, looking afraid. A Council guard shoved him roughly. Walker tensed, but the soldier kept his cover perfectly, shrinking away, eyes down. No one would guess this frightened youth could kill the guard in 3 seconds with his bare hands. Loading complete, the Council leader announced. "Your tribute has been accepted. Earth's cooperation will be remembered." Walker watched as the ships lifted off, carrying humanity's secret weapon into the heart of Council space. On the surface, Earth had submitted to the Council's demands. They had handed over their people without a fight. But in reality, they had just smuggled an army past the Council's defenses. In orbit, Admiral Gray watched the ships disappear into hyperspace. He opened a secure channel to the world's leaders. Phase 1 complete. All operatives away. Now we wait. The old admiral smiled. The Council thought they were receiving slaves. Instead, they had just taken a viper into their nest. Now it was only a matter of time before it struck. The deception was complete. The war could begin. Deep within Council space, the transport ships separated, each heading to different arena facilities. Walker's team found themselves in the outer ring, approaching a massive space station that gleamed like a dark jewel against the stars. "Remember," Walker whispered through the hidden comm system, "stay submissive until we're past the main security gates. Then we have 6 hours before the next check-in." The transport docked smoothly. Council guards began processing the tributes, directing them through scanners and into holding areas. Walker kept his eyes down as a guard roughly pushed him forward, fighting every instinct to fight back. In the holding area, Reed's voice came through his hidden earpiece. "Security systems mapped. Their overconfidence is amazing. They're using basic protocols. Give me 3 minutes." Walker pretended to cower in a corner, watching the guards through lowered eyes. They were lazy, bored. They'd done this hundreds of times before, and humans looked so weak, so frightened. "Perfect." "Systems breached," Reed whispered. "Camera loops in place. Guard rotations downloaded. We have access to everything." Walker touched his wrist, sending silent signals to his team. 20 elite operators, scattered through the holding area, acknowledged. Time to move. They struck like ghosts. Guards found themselves pulled into shadows, quickly silenced. Security cameras saw nothing but empty corridors and scared tributes. Within 15 minutes, Walker's team had control of the entire processing center. "Area secure," his second-in-command reported. "But, sir, you need to see this." Walker followed him deeper into the station. They passed holding cells filled with aliens from dozens of species. Some looked barely alive. Others showed signs of genetic modification. Extra limbs, armored skin, enhanced muscles. "They're creating living weapons," Reed said, scanning the medical data on a nearby console. "Each species is modified for different fighting styles. The winners get upgraded for harder battles. The losers," a scream echoed from somewhere below. "Not human. Something alien and full of pain." "Found the arena," another team member reported. "It's massive. Currently empty, but there's blood from at least 6 different species on the floor. And sir, there are VIP boxes. The council members watch the fights in person." Walker clenched his fists. "How many prisoners?" "Over 3,000 on this station alone." Similar reports coming in from other teams at different facilities. "Most prisoners are too weak to fight back, but some might help if we free them." Reed appeared at his side, her face pale. "That's not all. I found their research labs. They're not just making warriors. They're trying to create perfect killing machines. Mixing DNA from different species, testing pain tolerances, erasing memories." She stopped, looking sick. "Sir," his comm crackled, "we found Earth tributes. Previous ones. They—" The voice broke off for a moment. "Most are dead. The survivors, they're not the same anymore." Walker looked through a viewport at the massive arena below. Stands rose up all around it, enough to seat thousands. This wasn't just entertainment. It was an industry built on suffering. "New guard shift approaching," Reed warned. "We need to move. Get everything," Walker ordered. "Every file, every record. The council will pay for this." He touched his comm. "All teams, maintain cover. Keep gathering intel. In 3 days, we strike all facilities at once." They retreated to their holding areas, erasing all signs of their exploration. When the new guards arrived, they found only what they expected: scared tributes, quietly awaiting their fate. But now humanity knew the truth, and in cells across the facility, other species began to notice something different about these new humans. They didn't show the same fear as previous tributes. Their eyes held something else: cold, calculating fury. The council had built their empire on the suffering of other species. They thought humans would be just another set of victims. They were wrong. They had just led an army of wolves into their flock of sheep, and soon, very soon, The wolves would bare their teeth. The timer on Walker's hidden display reached 0. Across 12 different arena facilities, human operators moved as one. 3 days of gathering intelligence had led to this moment. "Go dark," Walker commanded. Seconds later, every arena station plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting red shadows through the corridors. Reed's voice came through the comm. "All security systems disabled. They're blind and deaf." In the confusion, guards rushed to their posts, expecting a simple power failure. Instead, they met highly trained human operators who had spent days memorizing their positions. The fighting was swift and silent. Walker led his team through the darkness, their hidden weapons now drawn. They moved like shadows, taking down guards with practiced efficiency. The Council's soldiers had grown soft from years of watching over helpless prisoners. They never stood a chance against Earth's best. "Control room secured," Reed reported, broadcasting the signal now. Throughout the station, hidden speakers crackled to life. Reed's voice echoed in a dozen alien languages. "To all prisoners, your guards cannot hear or see you. Your cells are opening. If you want freedom, follow the human warriors. If you want revenge, there are weapons at Security Station 4. The cell doors slid open. Aliens of all shapes and sizes emerged, blinking in the dim light. Some were scared, others angry. Many had been modified for combat, their bodies twisted by Council experiments. Block C secured, different teams reported in. Block D clear, arena level under control. A massive alien, clearly modified for combat, approached Walker. Its scales were scared from countless battles. It spoke through a translator. "You free us." "Why?" "Because the Council needs to fall," Walker answered. "Will you help?" The alien's eyes narrowed. "They took my children for their games, made me fight to survive. Yes, I help." Similar scenes played out across the station. Former prisoners, once forced to fight each other, now united against their real enemy. Reed's voice came urgently through the comm. "Council response fleet detected. 5 minutes out." Walker smiled grimly. "Right on schedule." He touched his comm. "All teams, Phase 2. Light them up." Throughout the station, hidden devices activated. Engineering teams had spent days planting explosives and sabotage devices. The station's weapons turned outward, ready to greet the Council ships. First Council ship dropping out of hyperspace, Reed announced. "They're hailing us." The main screen lit up. A Council Lord appeared, his face twisted with rage. "What is the meaning of this? How dare you?" Walker cut him off. "We bring tribute, as requested. The tribute of justice." The station's weapons opened fire. The Council ship, expecting to find helpless rebels, had approached with shields down. It erupted in flames. More ships arrived, but they faced not just the station's weapons, but also waves of escape pods. Inside each pod, former gladiators burned with revenge. The Council had spent years training them to fight. Now that training would be used against them. Reports coming in from other facilities. Reed called out. "All successful. We've freed over 30,000 prisoners. Council forces in disarray." The battle raged for hours. Council ships fought desperately, but they faced an enemy they didn't understand. Humans had turned their own arena station into a fortress, and their own gladiators into an army. By the time it was over, the Council fleet was in ruins. The liberation was complete. Walker stood in the former VIP box, looking out at the stars. Behind him, humans and aliens worked together, treating the wounded and preparing for the next phase. "Message from Admiral Gray," Reed reported. "Earth fleet is on the way. They're bringing everything we need for a full assault on Council space." Walker nodded. The Council had demanded tribute from Earth. Instead, they had received their own nightmare. A species that refused to bow, that fought back, and that freed others to fight with them. The real war was about to begin. and humanity was ready to lead the charge. News spread through Council space like wildfire. The humans hadn't just escaped. They had freed every arena station, released thousands of prisoners, and destroyed multiple Council fleets. The message was clear. The unbeatable Council could be beaten. Walker stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Thunder, watching as another slave world declared its independence. The planet's defense platforms, once used to keep its people trapped, now turned against Council ships. That makes 17 systems in revolt. Reed reported, studying the tactical display. The Council is losing control. Their own security forces are deserting them. Admiral Gray's hologram appeared on the command deck. The Earth fleet has secured the main supply lines. Council forces are cut off from their primary bases. The Thunder shook as its weapons blazed, destroying another Council patrol. Unlike the Council's showy, impressive-looking ships, Earth's vessels were built for practical combat. Decades of human warfare had taught harsh lessons about what worked in battle. Message from the Resistance on World 247. A communications officer called out. They've taken control of their planetary defense systems, requesting Earth advisors to help coordinate their forces. Walker nodded. Send in Team 4. They've had experience with those defense systems. He turned to Reed. What's the status of the Council's home fleet? Scattered. They never expected to fight a real war. Reed's fingers flew over her console. They're trying to gather their forces at their capital, but most of their ships were designed for intimidation, not combat. And now, a new alarm sounded. On the main screen, hundreds of ships appeared. But they weren't Council vessels. They were the ships of freed slave worlds, armed with weapons supplied by Earth. Former arena fighters commanded many of them. Their combat experience now turned against their former masters. Council broadcasting on all frequencies, the comm officer announced. The main screen showed the High Counselor, his usual confidence replaced by barely controlled fear. This rebellion must stop. We demand. Walker cut the transmission. No more demands from them. Send the broadcast. Around the galaxy, on every planet, moon, and station, screens lit up. The evidence Reed had gathered played for all to see. The arena footage, the medical experiments, the countless atrocities committed by the Council. Centuries of cruelty exposed to the light. Council forces breaking formation. Tactical reported. Multiple ships surrendering. Their crews are refusing to fight. The Thunder's engines hummed as it led the fleet toward the Council capital. Behind it flew ships from 50 different species, all united in their desire for revenge. The Council had spent centuries building their power through fear and entertainment. Now that entertainment had trained an army to destroy them. Direct hit on Council shield generators. Weapons reported. Their defensive line is collapsing. Walker watched as the mighty Council fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, broke apart under combined fire from their former victims. The Council had never faced a real enemy before. They didn't understand the difference between shows of force and actual combat. Sir, Reed called out, intercepted transmission from the Council chamber. They're trying to evacuate their leadership. Not this time. Walker opened a channel to all ships. All forces converge on the capital. Today we end this. The Thunder's engines roared as it led the charge. Behind it came ships of all sizes and designs. Earth vessels with their practical efficiency, alien ships with their varied technologies, and even captured Council cruisers turned against their former masters. The Council's capital loomed ahead, its defenses already faltering. They had built their society on the suffering of others, turned pain into entertainment, and expected their victims to remain passive. Instead, humanity had shown the galaxy another way. Not just how to fight, but how to win. How to turn weakness into strength, fear into anger, and entertainment into revolution. The final battle for the Council capital was about to begin. And this time, there would be no encore performance. The Council chamber's golden doors shattered under combined weapons fire. Walker led the assault team inside. Humans, and freed aliens fighting side by side. The marble floors were slick with blood, both from defenders and attackers. "They're retreating to the inner sanctuary." Reed's voice came through the comm. She was coordinating the attack from the thunder above. Satellite imagery shows no other escape routes. The High Counselor's voice boomed through hidden speakers. "You primitives, you dare attack the heart of civilization itself." Walker signaled his team forward. Among them fought former arena champions, their council-modified bodies now turned against their creators. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "The East Wing is secured," reported Commander Stone's team. "Found their records room. Everything they did, all their crimes, it's all documented. They were proud of it." The inner sanctuary doors loomed ahead, made of some metal that gleamed like oil on water. The Council's last defense. "Reed," Walker called. "Status above. Capital is fully surrounded. Earth fleet and allied forces have destroyed their last defensive line. No ships are getting in or out." She paused. "Admiral Gray says to remind you, we want them alive." Walker nodded grimly. Death would be too easy for them. The doors began to crack under sustained fire. Through the gaps, they could hear panicked voices arguing in alien languages. The mighty council, reduced to frightened prey in their own den. With a final thunderous boom, the doors fell. The council members huddled at the far end of their grand chamber. 12 beings in ornate robes, their arrogance replaced by terror. The High Counselor stood before them, still trying to maintain his dignity. "You cannot do this," he declared. "We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled for 10,000 years." Walker stepped forward. Behind him, humans and former arena fighters filled the room, weapons ready. "You demanded tribute," Walker said quietly. "From Earth, from all these worlds. You turned people into toys for your entertainment." He looked around at his allies. "Now we bring you our tribute." The High Counselor's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Arrest them," Walker ordered. "They face trial for their crimes. Every species they've wronged will have justice." As his teams moved forward with restraints, Walker's comm crackled. "Sir," Reed's voice was urgent, "you need to see this." The chamber's main screen lit up, showing scenes from across the galaxy. On every freed world, populations were celebrating. Former arena slaves embraced their families. Council propaganda stations now broadcast the truth. Ships from 100 species flew together, no longer enemies forced to fight for entertainment. "The last council holdouts are surrendering," Reed reported. "It's over." The High Counselor and his fellows were led away in chains, their fine robes now stained and torn. They would face justice from every world they had tormented. Admiral Gray's hologram appeared in the chamber. "The Earth Security Council is convening an emergency session. They're proposing the new Galactic Alliance, all species equal. No more tributes. No more arenas." Walker looked around the grand chamber, built with the wealth stolen from countless worlds. "What about this place?" "Turn it into a memorial," suggested one of the alien fighters, "so no one forgets." Days later, Walker stood in what had once been the Council's private arena. The stands where they had watched their bloody games were being torn down. In their place would rise a monument to every species that had suffered here. Reed joined him, holding a datapad. "Message from Earth. They're asking what happened to the council members." She smiled slightly. "Should I tell them we delivered their heads as promised?" Walker looked at the screen showing the prison ships carrying the council to face trial. "In a way, we did. They wanted tribute, and we brought them the heads of their leadership, just not quite how they expected." Above them, ships from Earth and 100 other worlds flew together in formation. The Council had tried to turn the galaxy's species against each other for entertainment. Instead, they had united them in revolution. The tribute had been paid, justice had been served, and a new age of true galactic cooperation could begin.